Hello, hello, hello. It is week 14 at the Around the 412 Fantasy Football Show, where unlike Deontay Johnson, we show up. I'm
Here we
Joe
go,
Frick.
cardio.
I'm Joe Frick. That's Drew Hannes. Drew, it's the last week of the fantasy regular season. How you feeling, my friend?
Feeling good. 17 leagues, clinch playoff spots in 15 out of the 17. The other two, I won't make it, though.
Not bad, not bad. Yeah, I was looking at my stats earlier today. On the year overall, I'm 118 and 103. In redraft, I'm 96 and 73. Dynasty hasn't really gone so well for me this year. 22 and 30. I've got some teams that are just bad, as you know. I got some teams that have been unfortunate, and then I've got one that's holding it down. So we'll see what happens. Welcome to the show. We're going to get started just like we always do with the questions rolling in the chat. So get those popping for us. But Drew, most importantly, what we need to do is you need to get that lab jacket on and give me a little bit of a rundown of the injuries because there have been some big ones this week.
Yeah. We'll start off with some of the minor ones just to knock them out. Roschon Johnson suffered a concussion. The only thing I could say really about that is if he doesn't play, DeAndre Swift might actually get some goal line work, which we haven't seen in a long time. Trevor Lawrence suffered a concussion, but I want to make a joke about him, but not for an injury because he clearly said he's okay, but he's been pain everywhere for a month and a half now. It's about time that the Jags finally just shut him down. The dude, he's tough as nails, but the team's not going anywhere. They just kept sending him out there to get brutalized. That hit that he took from Al-Shaair was brutal.
Yeah, it's not a good look. I've been thinking there's been a lot of really interesting commentary about the hit and is it legal? Is it not? What sort of protection should they give to quarterbacks? It is fascinating just to see how it happens. And it's when you slow things down, it's oh, you should have did this, that, or the other, but it happens all so fast. So I'm glad that he's good. They've put him on IR, like you said, so definitely won't see him again the rest of this season. I'm assuming that they find a new left tackle since they traded theirs away in the middle of the season, which makes sense because they weren't contending. But yeah, they need to find that boy some help because, it's been multiple years now where he's been getting consistently banged up.
Yeah, man. They're going to be picking high in the draft, so they're going to be looking at tackle for sure.
They're probably going to be picking number one. A lot of people are mocking Travis Hunter too.
Yeah, maybe.
How could you not? Dude's a beast, potential Heisman winner. Personally, wouldn't be my pick, but if he did, I wouldn't be mad about it.
Yeah, they'll probably go if they have the opportunity to go that route. I feel like they would, but I don't know if it really makes sense. It's tough to say. I don't know if he's going to play both sides in the NFL. I don't know if that's realistic when he.
I don't think that it would.
I think he's going to have to pick a side. So if he ends up being a receiver, I don't know if they really need him. They have some guys. They're going to lose Christian Kirk probably in free agency, but Brian Thomas has been very good. Who knows? We'll see. But again, Trevor Lawrence, I'm happy that they're finally letting the dude just, take a seat for the rest of the year because there's no point to just keep running him out there. Lad McConkey suffered a knee injury. He also has a shoulder injury, I guess, that showed up on the report as well. He's been really good, but there's a real chance that he misses this game. So if you've been relying on him, especially as a flex, because he's been a guy that people have been plugging in the flex spot and he's been doing really well, he might miss. So it's something to look at. I do think Josh Palmer will get an uptick. Quentin Johnson's kind of fell off the last 2 weeks, probably because I traded him in Dynasty, and as soon as that happened, he fell off. It's the curse of Zach Celedonia, Flash.
You want to talk about people that have been all over the internet, man. You had every sort of different reaction from that video that his girlfriend Kristen posted of him watching the games. You had some people that have loved it. Some people what the hell are you doing? I thought it was hilarious.
He's hilarious.
Well, I think the thing is if you don't know Zach, people are nah, this dude's just doing this because the camera's on him. But he actually is that person.
Yeah, I think that people thought that he was just posting it for clout, but
I think he was, but that's genuinely him.
But I think that Kristen was videotaping him. He didn't know.
No, right.
After the fact, he's oh, this is gold. Why would I?
Yeah.
But he's a good dude. Taysom Hill, he suffered a severe knee injury. This one's kind of tough because he was really he was an impact player in the tight end spot for a lot of guys the last couple of weeks. They were really riding him. He's going to miss the rest of the season. He's up there in age too, so I don't know what this is going to look like for Taysom Hill moving forward. Hopefully, he gets that surgery, comes back strong.
Yeah, I didn't realize that he was 34 already. That's crazy.
Yeah. Like sneaky 34.
Yeah.
Theo Johnson suffered a foot injury, placed on IR. Probably a Liz Frank. Don't really know the full specifics, but based on the timeline, thrown right on IR. It's probably a Liz Frank injury. Dallas Goedert suffered a knee injury. He's potentially could miss. I know a lot of guys were picking up Garrett Calcaterra. I'm not really feeling that. He's not a guy I'm going to plug in and play.
The only way that I would probably play him is like if you're like in a weird like fishbowl scenario where you have like the crazy tight end premium sort of situation and it only takes like a couple plays for him to get like 10 points.
Yeah. And we talked right before this. I couldn't believe it. Like Isaac Rendo is like the waiver wire ad of the season. Like unload the clip, 100% fab. I saw Calcaterra go ahead of him on waivers. I don't know if like the app just like circulated it weird, but like seeing his name show up before Garendo's just blew my mind at 3 a.m. Don't get it.
It's funny because I've tried to be more aggressive with spending fab this year instead of like waiting for a player like this. And now I'm like, shit.
I know. I thought that you were going to make trades for fab in Dynasty. I really did. Because you saw me do it.
No, because once I saw that you traded for like 200 fab, it just wasn't worth the effort anymore. Yeah. I was just like, I saw what happened. It was a good move. And then I was just like, screw it. Like
I didn't respond to your message purposely because I didn't want other people to notice that it was happening. But like for the chat, I loaded up with like I got 250 fab at like 5 o'clock deadline night, the night before waivers, and I just loaded up and I threw 100% of it at Garendo. And I didn't even need to because only Joe was the one that put a bid in. It was
I had $31 left.
It was just 251, 31.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
And then Drew Lock went for 250. Like it's just fantasy football's so weird.
I know. And then, Garendo, we talked about him, and Christian McCaffrey suffered that knee injury. I'm not really worried about the injury long term.
Like a long term, yeah.
It's very similar to what Puka Nacua suffered. Not even like in training camp, but like the second time around where he just banged his knee really, really hard. I think it's really just because of where they are, their team, and then how many games are left. That's why they placed him on IR and shut him down for the year. But he should be back strong next year. He already posted on Instagram today, his path forward. The dude works crazy hard. I'm not worried about any, rollover from 2024 into 2025. He should be a top 5 pick in redraft, as you expected. I mean, this year was just tough. We talked about this in the preseason when we were doing our draft shows. I was just like, the unanimous number 1 pick, like the past like 5 to 10 years,
it's been crazy.
It hurts every time.
Yeah.
And that's why I only ended up with him in one league because I was just like, it's just the bad vibes. And he was already like working through something. I ended up with a lot of Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson, but like I still picked him in a couple just because I wanted to have some exposure. But it's just weird how that's always been happening. It happened to Justin Jefferson last year. It happened to Jonathan Taylor. It happened to Saquon Barkley. It is what it is. But 2025, CMC comes back strong. They just signed him to an extension, so I won't worry too much about it.
So you won't be taking Saquon 101 next year in your drafts, is what I'm hearing.
We'll see. We'll see. His season's just unreal. Did I ever tell you that he went to the high school that I went to?
No.
Yeah, he went.
I didn't know he was Amish.
I'm not from Central PA though.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. And then finally, Jordan Mason. He kind of like threw everyone for a loop because everybody's like, "Oh, add Jordan Mason on Monday." And then later in the afternoon, like, "Oh, by the way, place on IR." I didn't even know he left the game on Sunday night.
I was surprised that Schefter didn't do 2 separate tweets because he put them all in one, and it was like, if he would have did like the McCaffrey and then like quote tweeted it with the Mason one, like it would have been insane.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know what he had. Probably a high ankle. Again, close to the end of the season, they're basically out of it at this point. So, I mean, they could still make the playoffs, but their vibes are so bad. Like, moving on to 2025. But yeah, that's it for injuries.
All right, cool, man. So before we get into our headlines for the week, we did have a couple questions in the chat, so let's hit those now. So we've got a rebuild scenario for Dynasty. This is gonna be super flex. So would you trade Jameis Winston and a mid-third rounder for Trey Benson? Other QBs they have are May and Williams in a rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, I added Jameis Winston in several dynasty leagues with the intent of trading him. I just don't see him as a long-term quarterback on any team. He's just always going to be a backup that gets a shot every now and then. I'd like to see him be a starter because the dude's fun. But
It's
I just
weirdo.
don't think it's going to happen. So I traded Jameis for multiple. Like I think I trade him 3 times. I got thirds every time.
Yeah.
But people are just hurting for quarterback. I would trade for Trey Benson, even
Yeah.
though James Conner signed an extension. He's still a guy that this might be the first season that he's had.
This
He
is
finished the whole
probably,
season, but there's still time left. I mean, knock on wood, nothing happens to James Conner, but like he's an injury prone guy.
Yeah.
It sucks, but he just hasn't finished a full season.
No, I did like Trey Benson's profile coming out of like into the draft. I think that he was my running back one going into the draft last year. I liked him better than Brooks. The only thing that I don't like about the trade, it's not so much the value. I think it's fair value. I looked at Keep Trade Cut, which isn't necessarily the Bible of things, but just to get like a pulse check, it said it was fair too. But yeah, I think that like he's a little bit undervalued because he hasn't seen the workload this year, but I don't think that's a reflective of anything other than just they're riding James Conner. So I think I would go for it. The one thing that it would be interesting to me is it's like as a rebuilder, I always try to lean heavier on picking up more wide receivers because they're more stable. So it's like if Connor gets hurt and you have an opportunity to maybe flip Benson, knowing that he has that extension, something that I would think about. But I do think that Winston's probably a guy that you probably got for minimum pickup, if anything at all. The mid-third round, I don't really care about anything beyond the second round as far as picks go. Even after like 2-6, I'm kind of like, it's whatever to me. So yeah, I like the move. I think it's a nice little. I don't know if upgrade's the right word, but you have more upside moving forward. We know what Jameis is at this point. Mid-third.
Jameis shouldn't get you anything. Like the fact that I got a third, I was psyched about it because I really don't see him as anything beyond this year. So if you're not contending, you don't need him. I would move him. No problem. Trey Benson was a second round pick in most rookie drafts. It's funny though, like all of the top running backs that people like this was a down draft for running backs. They all have to deal with someone else getting an extension ahead of them, which is
right. And then you have a strong running back class going into 2026 too. So
yeah. I unloaded on Jonathan Brooks as a side thing. Like I
who'd you trade him to?
You got him in one, right?
Yeah.
I have like 11 dynasty leagues and I had him in all of them and I've traded him in like probably half of them.
That's so disgusting.
Yeah. Because they don't require that much work, you know?
Yeah, you just really enjoy being Omar Khan.
Yeah, it's fun.
You do.
It is.
Fair. All right, so we got Mr. Magic back in action. Good to see you, my friend. Devonta Smith, DeAndre Hopkins, Keenan Allen. What do you like from this matchup this week? Drew, I was looking ahead on this one. So if I'm looking at Devonta Smith, it looks like he did practice today, so we're expecting him back in action. Philly is playing Carolina. They've gotten better as of late. They're not as positive as a matchup as we've seen overall as a team. 4.2 points above expected for all positions in PPR. Actually, a 1.3 negative matchup for wide receivers in the last 3 weeks against Tampa, Kansas City, and the Giants. If we're looking at Hopkins, they've got the Chargers, who've been a plus 8.4. I do like the matchup. I think that they do things there, but just the way that they're utilizing Hopkins, it doesn't make me feel very excited about it. Then you got Keenan Allen playing San Francisco, negative 4.9 points per game, less than the average. 2 wide receivers in the last 3 weeks. Buffalo in the snow game, I think, is playing a role in that just a bit. Given that Chicago's looked pretty good since they've switched up the offensive coordinator situation, I'm probably rolling with Keenan. I think the only thing you have to monitor here is that he didn't practice today, but he's an old man, so he doesn't really practice on Wednesdays anyway because he's hoodie Keenan Allen. So I would probably roll with Keenan this week if it was me.
Yeah, I agree. The Eagles, they're very heavily focused on Saquon, obviously, And there hasn't been a lot of passing volume, I feel like, besides outside of AJ
There
Brown.
really hasn't. Even AJ Brown hasn't done a lot, I feel like, in weeks.
Yeah. So I think this is actually a pretty easy decision because Keenan Allen seems like he's been the guy that Caleb has really relied on. I feel like they're trying to get DJ Moore some screen game work, but like Keenan's the guy that's been scoring touchdowns and
He's definitely the red zone guy for sure. Just from a target perspective on Thanksgiving, I mean, DJ Moore got 15 targets, which is crazy. Keenan Allen was second on the team with 7. Rome had 6. I'm really surprised that Rome hasn't kind of popped out more in the back half of the year, but it is what it is. I think would have been a great dynasty buy low because I believe in the talent full-heartedly. And we know that Keenan isn't going to be there forever. So, it's going to be interesting to see how things unfold for them, but Cole Kmet, 3 targets. Swift had 3 targets. They're really feeding the 2 main guys. Cool. So we had one more from Mr. Magic, Jacoby J or JSN. I'll let you start with that one.
Yeah, I'm trying to look here on your chart because I don't have the schedule in front of me.
No, you're fine. So we've got Vegas up against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's defense has been pretty porous, but they've improved in the last few weeks. I think part of that is playing Carolina, the Giants, and then San Francisco. I wouldn't have expected to put San Francisco in the struggling offense category, but football's a weird sport. Here we are. And then for JSN, Seattle is playing Arizona. Last 5 or 6 weeks, that defense has been unbelievable across the board. Just knowing that matchup for Seattle, divisional game, I don't feel great about that. I think I'm leaning Jacoby here.
Yeah, I agree. The matchup against Arizona doesn't look good based on your chart. And Jacoby had a ton of targets last week. Like
Jacoby's been getting a lot of targets. I mean, he's been balling, especially since Devonta Adams has been out. I understand that he may be the second option behind Brock Bowers, but he's making a count. I think he has a high floor. You're really just looking for that TD that's going to be the make it or break it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
And Aiden O'Connell looked serviceable last week.
He looked really good last week. I was shocked. It was like a double take of like, is that really him doing that right now? It's crazy. So we shall see. All right. Next question is from Steve Garcia. Welcome to the show. We're going to flex one. Pacheco, Hopkins, QJ, Njoku. I'm starting Jonnu Smith in the tight end spot.
Jonnu rules, by the way, real quick.
Jonnu does rule. Talk about like what a great like evolution of a player. It's funny when he was in Tennessee, a lot of people hyped him up like and compared him to Delanie Walker. And like his breakout is very similarly following like the Delanie Walker trend. Like it's pretty interesting.
He's our top target in Miami. It's weird to see Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are second fiddle to Jonnu Smith. And I don't think that this is going away. I think next year this is going to be a similar thing. But I actually feel like I would – this is weird for me. I feel like I would actually flex Njoku here because of how Jameis has been playing. He's going up against the Steelers, but I feel like Njoku gets his against the Steelers.
But he also gets so many targets. And one of the things that we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show is Jerry Jeudy. Jameis Winston has thrown the ball more than 40 times in every game except for the Steelers snow globe game.
And that's because of the weather. And, dude, he almost touched 60 passes last night.
Yeah, so it's like everybody that you can get from Cleveland, it's like, why not at this point? Like, even when Tillman comes back, like, could be still a serviceable option with Jeudy, Moore, and Njoku. But I think Njoku's their number one. Out of respect for Jonnu, I would put Njoku at tight end and put Jonnu in the flex, but ultimately it's the same.
I wouldn't. Browns are always flex spots, if anything.
Yeah, I guess. All right. Pick 2. Marvin Harrison Jr., Nick Westbrook, Akeen. Is it Akeen or Akeen? Did you say the end?
Yeah.
Akeen, my bad, friend. And then Rashad White.
7
touchdowns in 8 games, baby.
This is funny, honestly. Like, if you were to look at like what their projections are, you would think I sound like the biggest idiot. But I think Rashad White's I think he's the guy I'm sitting. I think that there's a changing of the guard in Tampa Bay. Bucky Irving has been the better player. He's playing more snaps than him now.
Yeah.
Nick Westbrook, Akeen has been. I mean, he's on fire. Like, his projection's like 7 points I saw, but like I still have him in multiple lineups. I feel good about him scoring. They play the Jaguars.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Rashad White and Bucky Irving, they split snaps pretty much down the middle.
But like the last 3 weeks, like if you just watch it based on the eye test, it's not.
Oh, eye test for sure. I have a stat here for Bucky. So he's leading for running backs. He's leading in yards per route run and yards after contact per rush. He's number one in both.
But as the chat just pointed out, Bucky suffered a hip injury too. But I didn't add him on my list because he already said on Monday that he's feeling.
He said he felt better than he thought it was at the end of Sunday. Yeah.
I think that it might have been like a bruise. He just fell awkwardly, but it seems like he's going to be okay.
Yeah. No, yeah. So I'm trying to think. I feel like the Westbrook Akine thing, like, it's a fun story.
It's do you feel like the vibes are going to sustain? And because of their schedule, like I
mean, the matchup is phenomenal this week.
I proposed him as a Tinder to you, and then we ended up pivoting. But I think I still have some of my notes here. I mean, he scored a touchdown in 3 straight games, obviously, a touchdown in 7 of 8 games. Like that's
it's just a very unsustainable, like if you look at like his receptions per touchdown, it's like 2.
Yeah, but his targets are up the last couple of weeks. And he's also playing the most snaps on the team. Like he's out snapping Calvin Ridley by like 15 snaps the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Like I just think that Will Levis likes him.
Yeah. I don't know.
If you need to win to get in, I feel like you should just pick, your big name guys. But like, if you're just coasting, you're worried about placing, and you are willing to take the risk, I'm playing Akine. Like like I said, I have him in multiple lineups. I feel good about him. I just haven't felt good about Rachaad White over the past few weeks. Like,
yeah, I just worry about like. I don't know.
He's just like, he gets you like 10 carries a week and he relies completely on passing game work. And I don't know if it's going to be the same with Mike Evans back.
Yeah, it's tough for me to be like, okay, so yeah, he did get the 7 targets. I think with the matchup, yeah, you have to roll with it. And then I trust Marv over White. So I'll roll with you on that. I like it. All right, so we got Veets Skeets. Respect. Start 1 tight end and 1 flex. Jonnu, Kittle, Tracy Jr., Juwan Jennings, and Darnell Mooney. I think, Drew, I'm actually going to transition because we said we were going to talk about this a little bit, so we're going to get into the headlines. What's going on in Atlanta, man? It just seems like Kirk Cousins is like falling apart.
You can't start anyone in Atlanta not named Bijan Robinson right now. You just can't. Like, Kirk looks awful.
It's like that scene in the Big Daddy when he's like, he's old. He's got old balls. Like, it's just like, it's just so weird.
He looks so bad. He doesn't have a touchdown pass in 3 straight weeks. I mean, 6 interceptions in 3 weeks. Like, someone reached out to me ahead of the trade deadline in one of our dynasty leagues, and he only has Kirk because he had Dak, who's on IR.
Right.
It's a 2 QB league, not super flex. And he was desperate for a quarterback. I ended up trading Aiden O'Connell. He felt better about Aiden O'Connell for this dynasty league over Kirk. He really thought that Michael Penix is going to take over. I didn't believe it at first, but then I went into the numbers. They might have to put Penix in if he continues to play like this because they're tied with the Bucs right now in the standings.
And they play the last week of the year. I think it's going to come down to that game. But if you're going to make that move, like you need to do it now because you can't throw him in like in a must-win game. I just think that they're going to be too stubborn to.
They play the Panthers last week because the Bucs already lost to the Falcons twice. They have.
You're right. So yeah, so they're 6-6 right now. They're both split, but the Falcons have the tiebreaker.
Yeah, but their schedule isn't really easy. Like they play the Vikings this week, tough. The Raiders are going to play them tough, and they play the Giants. That should be an easy one. But then the Commanders and Panthers are going to play them tough. The thing for me is that Kirk really has struggled against teams with good pass rushes. So like I was looking at, they play the Vikings this week. They're 4th in the NFL in sacks. They're going to get after him. He can't move. It's going to be a problem. The Raiders, they struggle with their pass rush, but then you have Max Crosby. So like he's a one-man wrecking crew. And I don't feel like the Falcons are going to protect him. The Giants, they're not a good team, but they're 6th in the NFL in sacks. They're going to get after him. It doesn't matter if
they. You think that changes it all with Dexter Lawrence going on IR?
It definitely could, but I mean, they still have Kayvon Thibodeau,
Sure.
top 5 pick or top 10 pick, projected top 5, ended up going like what 6th or something,
I think it was 6th. Yeah.
or 7th or whatever. I mean, I still think they're going to get after him. The Commanders are 13th in the NFL in sacks, and the Panthers are just like they're different now. They're like you can actually see for how bad of an organization that they are. Something changed right after Bryce Young started again. Something changed where it seems like they just figured out like a way to turn it around a little bit. Like they're not winning.
Yeah, I don't know. They look a lot better, and he looks a lot better too.
Yeah, they look different. So it's like I think that the Falcons have a tough road, and I think this could get ugly really quick. And if Kirk continues to throw the ball to the other team, why would they continue to run him out there?
Sure.
I mean, it's been great for Bijan though. He had the most touches he's had in the NFL last week, and
yeah,
that's what they have to do. But like, I can't start a receiver unless it's Drake London.
yeah, you got to keep rolling London out there, I think. So going back to the question from Beat Skeets, Jonnu Smith, obvious start here.
Yes.
But who are you thinking as far as the other flex? To me, it comes down to Kittle or Tracy, and I think I would probably roll with Tracy out of the two.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually on Juwan Jennings. I guess I would have talked about it more in the Tinder, but like I think Juwan Jennings is Brock Purdy's top option right now. I think that he trusts him more. I mean, when he throws him the ball, he's coming down with it. He's playing the most snaps for the Niners. Deebo is basically running like 15 less snaps than Juwan Jennings, tied with Ricky Pearsall at this point. I'm kind of on Jennings. But I think that I could. What was the other option? Because the chat scrolled down.
No, you're good. So you got Jonnu Smith, Kittle, Tracy, Juwan Jennings, Mooney.
Who did the Giants have again this week?
The Giants are playing the
Saints. Yeah, of course. I mean, I could get behind Tracy too. It's between those two for me, but I think that if you're in a PPR league, I kind of vibe with Jennings. Who did the Niners have again?
The Niners are playing the Bears.
Oh. Their secondary is pretty solid.
Bears? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that based on matchup, I'd probably give Tracy a little bit of a lead there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we got a defensive question from that pick 2 for the Shadow is Wicked, the Marv Westbrook-Akine, Rashad White. It's actually a playoff matchup.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So best of luck to you. Congrats on making it, and let's keep getting it done. So we got a defensive question in the chat.
We hit on our defense.
We also hit on the defense last week. When they got that touchdown, I was so like hype. My father-in-law was like, "I need a defense." I was like, "Go pick up the Cowboys." It was the vibes were immaculate.
There was no hesitation on that defense either from both of us. We were like Dallas Cowboys, and yeah.
All right, so Saints, Chargers, Titans, Niners. Out of those 4, the Saints are going to get the nod from me. So the Saints are playing the Giants. You got Drew Lock, who's a bum. So to me, that's like guaranteed turnovers. He's one that's going to take a good bit of sacks because he holds on to the football. There is a guy on Reddit that I follow. He goes by Subverted Down. He does defensive projections. He has the Saints as his 3rd best option this week. He's got the Titans at 4. I just have less confidence in the Titans defense. Chargers aren't even in his top 10. And I think that the Chargers are a good real life defense, but I don't like the matchup for them this week. So that's not something that I would be considering. Like, you're not going to start anybody against the Chiefs. Like, there's just no way. 49ers, I could see you wanting to use. It wouldn't be horrible against Chicago, but they've looked a lot better since, like we said, like there's been a positive change with like the mid-year transition that they made. So to me, it's going to be Saints, Titans. I like the Saints just a smidge more.
Yeah. I'm with you. The only reason I'm flipping to the Titans, I have this weird thing about me that I typically only start defenses that are playing at home.
Sure.
So Tennessee at home over the Saints on the road, that's literally the tiebreaker for me. They're both neck and neck. I could be fine with either, but that's the reason why I would break a tiebreaker with a defense. I usually pick the home squad.
Cool. Good deal. All right, so we got another trade. I'm surprised people are still trading, but that's cool.
Yeah.
So we got Anthony on the show. Should I trade Metcalf and Tyrone Tracy for Sutton PPR redraft? Mr. Magic said, "Hell no."
Yeah.
Drew, what do you think about
Hell no.
that?
I mean, Bo Nix has been good, but like he's spreading it around. I know Sutton had a couple big weeks, but it's really not like he's not a bona fide guy. I still like Metcalf over him, and then you're giving away Tracy as well, which I like him too.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. I do think it's a bit much. I do like the idea of getting Sutton, but I think that it's a bit rich to get those. The only way, and they're both playing, so it's not a thing. I was gonna say if it was like a bye week thing and you were kind of like didn't have the leverage, maybe it's something that you do to get yourself in. But I don't see that being a thing. And Sutton's on bye this week anyway, so
Yeah, but yeah, he asked if he's the best flex in 2 questions down, but you can't flex him. He's not playing, but I do think you should acquire him, just like Joe is saying.
yeah. Let me look at who does Denver have schedule wise in the next couple weeks.
I think that the trade deadline should be this week, not last week. Like we were talking about that before the show, but it's because there's still buys. That's the reason why I think that the deadline should be the week where the last buys are.
So they've got. Well, this is going to be interesting. So their remaining games, they've got the Colts this in 2 weeks. Then they've got the Chargers, but championship week they have the Bengals. But you got to get there.
Hold on. If you could start anybody against the Bengals, you do it. It's like you don't even think.
You can start me against the Bengals.
The Bengals like muted.
Yeah, the Bengals are giving up on average 35.8 points more per game as a team in fantasy football than any other team on average.
Yeah, because their offense has been so good too. Like you have to score points against them, and they don't stop anyway. It's like the perfect recipe for fantasy.
Yeah. But I do think in that matchup, I think the Chargers have been pretty porous against the pass as well. And then, yeah, the Colts. Let me look at the Colts here real quick. I like the trade. I just think it's like the idea of acquiring Sutton. I just think it's a lot. Like I think you should be able to trade Metcalf for Sutton 1-for-1 pretty much.
Yeah, I agree.
Let me see here. So who was the other team? Oh, the Colts. Colts have been a very negative matchup lately, but they've played New England, Detroit, Jets. So I mean, they've been good against the pass. I think I would just rather those other two guys. The only way that I would maybe make the trade is if one, that person's out of the playoffs, and two, if one of those two guys isn't going to see your lineup. But I don't know. I still, it doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies. All right, so this one's a little bit spicy. Tyler, welcome back. Good to see you, my friend. Seahawks defense or the Bills? Oh, I don't feel great about either one of those options. So you got Seattle is up against Arizona, and then you got Buffalo is up against the Rams.
And both are on the road.
Both on the road. Ooh. I think that I would take Buffalo only because Matt Stafford is kind of banged up right now. So is there a chance that he could not play this week?
I don't think I'd take Buffalo. The reason being, like this one's tough. I feel like you should try to look for a better option.
Let me see what else might be out there on the wire. I'm very curious about this because I have some some leagues that people like. I was looking at defenses today and I was like, yo, like what am I gonna do?
The reason I picked Seattle just while you're looking is because the Cardinals have been off and on.
True.
You get them on that off, and they're playing a division game where typically they're tougher battles. Maybe you can get lucky that it's a low scoring game.
Looking at ESPN, the Bills are projected at 4.8 points. Seattle's at 4.4.
So it's like same thing.
Yeah. I don't feel great about either. I would honestly, since they're both a 4:00 game, depending on how it was going in the 1:00 slate, I might not play defense.
I mean, if he needs the points, though.
Yeah. The one that would be interesting, the Jaguars defense against Tennessee, I'd be curious if they were available.
I still feel like Tennessee's just gonna. I feel like Tennessee's.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I guess I'll roll with you with the Seattle pick. I don't feel great about either one. I just looked. Stafford's going to play, so I can't go up against McVay. Hopefully, Kyler just continues to struggle, and then you make it happen. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't feel great. If you really want to get crazy, you could play the Bengals on Monday night against the Cowboys if CD doesn't play.
If you want to get a negative, you're going to get -4 and lose your matchup, and then you would have been.
It would be so fun. But if they got like a big game, you would be the ultimate flex. It would be the ultimate. I should have picked them as my only fantasy.
I didn't check it last week. They got a pick 6, and I still feel like they probably got a negative score.
Probably true.
They probably got 0.
All right. Moving on. We got Nino in the chat. What's up, my guy? Looking to trade for Bijan for that playoff schedule. Current RBs are Chase Brown, James Cook, Bucky, Brian Robinson, Tracy, and Brooks. First offered B-Rob and Cook. He countered with Chase Brown and Cook. I mean, that's what it's going to take. But honestly, yeah. You still have Bucky.
It's funny. His first trade offer is exactly what I would have offered. But I would still do Chase Brown and Cook. Because, like, I don't know if Chase Brown's built for it, honestly. Like, I feel like at some point, all of the carries that he's getting are going to tail off. And I just don't know if he's built for it size-wise.
Sure.
James Cook, though, I feel like he's going to get better as the season goes on because of the weather. But Bijan's getting the most touches that he's gotten at all in his career in the NFL. And you could still get another guy in there. If you start 2 running backs, you got Bijan as 1. He's probably going to cover what Chase Brown and James Cook are getting you because of how many touches he's getting. And he's literally their offense. Like, it's funny. I was going to say it for the headlines, but back-to-back weeks, they've been doing this thing the last 2 years where Tyler Algier was getting the short yardage work. He gets stuffed 3 times in a row. Bring in Bijan, he gets it no problem. Like,
immediately
anymore. Like, how many times do we have to see it before you just commit?
Yeah, I would definitely roll with it. Because I think otherwise it's like you still have good options. Brian Robinson, Tracy, like Bucky Irving. Because like to me, like in the game, the team that you have right now, James Cook, Bucky, they're probably your starters. Chase Brown and Tracy, depending on matchups. I just think Bijan is just such a beast that it's like, all right, like I'm fine doing that.
He has the Giants week 16. If you can get to that round in the playoffs, I don't see how you don't make it to your championship with a guy like that against the Giants.
So Chad's in the chat. I want to get back to Tyler's question real quick before we jump into Chad. So Tyler said that Miami's available versus Rodgers. Miami's defense is not good. Disagree. Top 5 play for me this week. Lock in on Miami way above those other 2 teams. So go run.
Rodgers is throwing a ton of picks. Like,
yeah. Aaron Rodgers is too busy making his Netflix special. So yeah, I would roll with Miami. Drew, when does the around the 412 or rock around the 412 end?
I feel like it's like the 12th or something.
Okay. I am going to bet $25 that the Bengals defense is going to outscore the Bills and the Seahawks this week.
Who are you betting?
You. Like for me, this is just like an accountability thing.
Okay.
So if the Bengals do not outscore those 2, then I will donate $25 more to rock around the 412.
Okay.
So there's that.
All right, so go get your card real quick.
Chad's in the house. What's up, Chad? Burks tore his ACL. He tore it week 1. So what's going on?
Yeah, so a little context here. He had a surgery, or he's scheduled for a surgery this week. I forgot that he existed, so I dropped the Taylor Swift forgot that he existed picture on that thing. I had to go back and look at this. So he didn't get hurt in week 1. It was like the second week of October or something. And he suffered a loose ACL, which is like really weird. It's not a tear. It's like, that's what they said, at least. They said that he suffered a loose ACL where like you don't have
like stretched out.
You don't have stability in the knee, like range of motion's jacked up. It's kind of like what I thought would have been what Puka was going through the second time around, but it was a ACL, not a PCL. Like it wasn't torn, but there's instability there. I think they just flat out flubbed it and that it was torn the whole time. Unless, because I don't think he practiced or anything that he could have hurt, made it worse. So it just came out of nowhere and it was just weird. But he suffered a loose ACL. That's what they said originally, but it's torn now and they're going to have surgery. It sucks. That dude's career is shot at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. Very weird situation for sure. I don't know. Okay, so we got RNG. Hey guys, question for you, PPR league. I'm weak at running back. I've got Swift and ETN, but stacked at wide receiver. Nico, CD, JSN, Lad, Adams, Jennings. Should I trade Nico Collins for the King?
No.
Baltimore may have a tough playoff schedule.
No. I mean, wait, is he acquiring Derrick Henry or Nico
He's acquiring Henry.
I would not trade Nico Collins because he's the only thing in their passing attack that works. Collins is the guy I would prefer to keep. I would try to trade CD.
I don't think people are going to go for that, though. Not with the way that Henry's balling, man. There's no way.
The last 3 weeks, Derrick Henry had 11 points each. He looks bad just like CD. I think it looks like it's head-to-head match.
I think the perception, it's like the HR meme. It's I've scored 11 points in the last 3 weeks. Oh, you're so cute. I've scored 11 points in the last 3 weeks. Oh, human resources. I feel like that's the situation. Yeah.
Collins, though.
I think if you're going to if you're trading Nico Collins, I don't hate the move, but I probably would. Yeah, I don't know.
Nico Collins is a top 5 wide receiver when healthy. That's where he was pre-injury, and he's played well in his return. Yeah. I wouldn't trade Nico Collins.
I wonder if you could do CD and another two of the wide receivers. Could you get CD and JSN or something like that, or CD and Lad or something like that? Because Adams, I don't feel great about. Jennings, I like. I would feel comfortable having Jennings in a flex. So it's if you have 5 guys that you have in your lineup, you're better off doing something so that they're not just sitting on your bench because your bench isn't going to help you.
Yeah, just unload the clip at this point to go for a championship, and just hope that you don't get any injuries at all. But Nico's not the guy I would touch. He's the one wide receiver in that stack that is a must keep for me.
Yeah. Fair. All right. So we got Mr. Grapefruit. I think we've seen you before. Welcome back. Would you guys be upset if someone in your league was starting both James Cook and Ray Davis over Travis Etienne Jr. against the person you need to lose to make the fantasy playoffs? Basically the person that they're playing, and Mr. Grapefruit himself via jockeying for the 4th and final playoff spot.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's kind of merit there, though, because Etienne's been so bad, too. At least you have the better offense.
I want to see just looking at I'm curious what it looked like last week, because Ray Davis, he's been getting some run.
Yeah, it's not a full committee, but I think that he gets enough against players like Etienne that are playing on bad offenses. And
it's very boomer bust, though. I mean, last week he had 13 points. Kansas City had 1. Indy had 0.6. Miami had 17 on that long screen.
I feel like, though,
last week I think was very game scripty because of the snow.
Right. The thing is, though, Etienne's going up against the Titans, and the Commanders just ran all over him. So it's matchup based. Etienne could be better.
I mean, he could. Where is he? Oh yeah, he was running back 31 last week. So
he hasn't been good. So
he hasn't put up more than 10 points since week 5.
Can you check the snap counts for Ray Davis and James Cook 2 weeks ago? Let's have the snow game
ago. They were on bye 2 weeks ago, I think.
Okay, so their last game before the snow.
Yeah. Let me just double check.
In the bye week.
So week 11. Was that Sunday night? The Kansas City game? Yeah. That was also a snow game. Let's see.
Who do the Bills have?
They played the Chiefs, and the snap count, Ray Davis saw 15 snaps. James Cook had 27. Ray Davis carried the ball 5 times.
Well, the Bills have the Rams. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a good matchup for the running backs.
Yeah, it's a good matchup. I don't think that like ETN, like his projection is very much tied to like draft capital and like name recognition.
The Jaguars matchup is actually not good. It's just maybe the Commanders are just an outlier because they're always. I mean, even with that big game that they had on the ground, they're still only at 21 points per game over the last 3.
Right.
And they face Houston too, which Mixon should have brought that number up as well. The Vikings can't be pulling that number down that low by themselves.
No. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I get it. It's frustrating, but also like
on paper it looks bad, right? But like maybe they're just onto something just because the Jags have been so bad. It really just their team is not good.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't know. They just thinking about this like from the perspective of a commissioner, like if people are setting their lineup and they think that they're doing what's best, like I can't force them to play the top projected player. So it may be frustrating, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. It just it looks and
feels sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, but it could really balance, to be honest, because of how bad they've been. So the Jags.
Just want to stop and acknowledge good old pal Ken. What's up, my friend?
Ken?
Steelers are 9-3. I know that Ken was up in the Hard Knocks last night. Given the casual flex, 11-2 first, 9-4 second. We love that. Every year I have more points scored relative to my record. Dude's crushing it. Ken just always stand-up guy, doing his thing. Good to see you, buddy. And hope you and the family had a fantastic Thanksgiving. Drew, I know we wanted to talk about kind of like murky backfield situations. We talked about the Buccaneers a little bit. We've talked about the Falcons. You pretty much said that Tyler Algier 2 weeks ago, 4 snaps last week. Only played about 30% of the snaps. Don't really see anything there. The other one that we wanted to talk about real quick before we get into Fantasy Football Tinder, the Chargers. So we had the big injury to last 2 weeks ago. Gus Edwards becomes the primary running back, started the game, but Kamani Vidal and Hassan Haskins both played in the first drive. We've seen this kind of tale before when they've had any sort of J.K. Dobbins injury. Vidal surpasses Haskins, gets more snap. What I thought was interesting, though, Haskins got the goal line touch.
Which is exactly what I said would happen. I just felt that.
Yeah, he's also their preferred pass protector out of those 3. I don't feel good about any of those 3 moving forward unless Vidal is able to really dominate the committee, which I don't think there's enough run in the rest of the season to make it happen.
For me, the only thing I wanted to add about this backfield is I felt like we learned nothing last week. Like Gus Edwards, he had the most snaps, but Hassan Haskins fumbled on his 1 carry. Like he basically lost his ability to do anything. And Vidal's snaps were up because of that. I feel like we didn't learn anything this week, and you just can't start anybody on the Chargers.
Yeah, I think that backfield's pretty murky. So cool. All right, well, let's jump into Fantasy Football Tinder. I'm going to shrink the screens. They don't want to see my face anyway, so let's get small, and then we'll do what we got to do. So this is Fantasy Football Tinder. If this is your first time watching the show, in for a treat. So let's just kind of describe what this looks like for our friends here. So let's get the vibes and the visuals, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So we got our friend Zach here. Zach, if you don't follow him on Twitter, immediately great follow. But something he does every time in the holiday season, he does a advent calendar coffee review. Day 3, bro packs the cinnamon roll coffee, and he also had the cinnamon roll creamer. Some people are wondering, did the review peak too early for holiday content purposes? For all of us that love what he does, we want to see this all the way through the end of the year. So we're going to say, no, it didn't peak. We're going to keep riding high some of us say, hey, you know what? He's got a lot of bad ones left in the hopper. We're going to let it go. We're going to swipe left. You'll see the red X's pop up on the screen. So first guy we're going to talk about, Drew, we talked a little bit about this situation earlier in the show. None other than Deebo Samuel. He was one of the heartthrobs from Netflix's wide receiver show. It's not been looking good for him these last few weeks. Drew, are you still singing with Jeudy and Deebo Fish?
I don't know how I follow that now. I said a lot of my stuff earlier for my stats, so I'll be pretty quick. I'm swiping left, though. I mean, he's wide receiver 49 on the season, and all of his good games came early. You know what I mean? 2 of his 3 good games were the first 2 weeks of the season. He's had 10 or less fantasy points in 6 games since. He's only been greater than 12.6 fantasy points in those 3. So, like, the dude just, like, he's not producing. The Niners themselves are not producing. And then my main thing was that, you know, he's only playing 70% of the snaps. That's low for Deebo Samuel.
Right.
Juwan Jennings is playing majority of the snaps. And their schedule's not good the rest of the way either. So they got the Bears. It's like a middle matchup. I think that those numbers might be skewed up a little bit, though, because of the teams that they played. So it could be worse. The Lions, Vikings, and Packers were their last 3. Like, those are good offenses. So I feel like they're not going to give up as much as what you're thinking. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Then they got the Rams are already a bottom matchup. And the numbers are skewed there because they played the Saints and Patriots. So, like, maybe they'll be okay. But at this point, like, they're kind of packing it in. Dolphins, bad matchup. Lions, bad matchup. And if you make it to week 18 and play, they got the Cardinals, another bad matchup. So, like, the matchups are bad. He's not on the field enough. They're not really handing the ball off to him, which maybe we'll see that more with Garendo. I just don't think it's going to be enough.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at when McCaffrey's been out, I mean, he's usually only getting 3 or 4 rushes in a game. It seems like the utilization isn't there. I also think that he's like the 3rd receiving option on the team right now behind Kittle and behind Juwan Jennings. So the lack of rushing volume, the lack of receiving volume, I mean, since week 4, his highest targeted game has been 7, but usually he's hovering around 5. That offense doesn't look great. Trent Williams hurt. I'm going to swipe left with you. I don't think that there's more left to say. It's just a very disappointing year for Deebo. I'm curious what's going to happen. He was somebody that they talked about trading before the year started. I could very well see a scenario where he's not on the 49ers next year.
I don't expect him to be on the 49ers next year. I actually heard something that the Niners had a little bit of buyer's remorse on the Ayuk trade. I was reading something about that, but because he tore his ACL, they're not going to be able to move him. So they can't keep both of them. They know that.
Yeah.
Deebo's likely out. And if you have him from a dynasty perspective, I think that you got to try to get rid of him. Honestly, I
don't know when you do that. It's going to be a tough sell. I mean, he's 28, so he's got like couple seasons now. The way that his style of play, it doesn't seem like it would age well. But I was looking at something, I forget who posted it, but it was like kind of like success rate versus man in versus zone. He was like in the positive quadrant for both. So I think like there's this narrative that he can't separate, do this and that. Like I think that he can, but this offense is definitely stalling out a little bit. You wouldn't think to be saying that about the 49ers this year, but there's just something not right. And I just don't want anything to do with that right now if I can't help it. I think it's outside of Kittle, Garendo, and then Juwan Jennings. I think that's it. Like even Purdy, I think I'm going to fade a little bit.
Yeah, I think that there's a trend for the team that lost the Super Bowl to like struggle.
Usually, yeah, they've kind of been good about preventing that, but they've just played a lot of football in the last 4 years. I mean, they're perennial NFC championship. They go to the Super Bowl. So yeah, it's not ideal. I think we're going to see a change of the guard just like in terms of roster turnover for their next year. So we'll see. All right, so let's move on to Tinder number 2. So we've got Jeudy. For you, Jerry, Jeudy came on strong. Revenge game of all revenge games last week. Most in NFL history. Drew, how are you feeling about Jeudy being the late season beauty?
I just have to say one thing before we even do it. Lord, deliver me from these pick sixes. The funniest quote I've ever seen.
He's so corny. And it's like, I just can't like fathom, like, how is that real? because is that like the stick? But then like even on like Hard Knocks when they showed him, it's like that all the time.
I know, it's so funny. Like the clip of him like going through the obstacle and he's like falling out of it, just cracking up every time. And then the other clip where he's scrambling and he like scrambles towards the first down marker and it's like 10 yards away and he actually gets the first down before he realizes he passes the line of scrimmage. It's hilarious. He's hilarious. I love that dude. But this is an easy buy. Like we talked about Cedric Tillman weeks ago, and this is exactly what we kind of thought was going to happen with Cedric Tillman. Then he got hurt, and it just kind of like faded away. It sucks for Cedric Tillman, but Jeudy's numbers are just like you can't argue it. In 5 games with Jameis Winston, he's averaging 10 targets a game. Like he's right up against 10 every single week. He's had at least 7 receptions, or he's averaging 7 receptions per game, averaging 120 yards. Obviously, that's inflated due to the Denver game, but if you take that away, he's still averaging 70.
So let me hit you with this. I'm going to swipe right with you. So Patrick Doherty from Rotoballer, Jerry Jeudy in the 5 games he's played with Jameis Winston has accounted for 14% of his career production. That is absurd.
Yeah,
and that was going in that was like halfway through the game. He finished at 15.6%. Now that I'm rereading this tweet,
that's because in several years Jerry Jeudy was just a guy, a jag.
Right.
He's killing it. This is like one of the few things I feel like the Browns have ever gotten right in their history was like they bought low on Jerry Jeudy. They paid him ahead of of seeing the production. It's paying off for them. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to last, but with Jameis Winston, it's going to last through this season. Like he's definitely someone that you don't even have to think twice about putting him in your lineup because he had the toughest matchup or one of the toughest matchups last week. Even if it's a revenge game, he still produced against Patrick Surtain.
Well, he didn't really do a lot against Patrick Surtain, but for whatever reason, they just weren't putting him on him.
I didn't even realize that, but
there was. If you looked at the stats, it was like 2 receptions, 17 yards against Surtain. And then it was like 190 yards for everyone else. It was like,
Maybe Kevin Stefanski just schemed him up to get away from Surtain, which if that's the case, then
maybe
still, I mean, he's going to be matchup proof. I feel good about it. I mean, he went for 6 for 85 against the Steelers. This might be his toughest matchup the rest of the way. The Chiefs have been giving up a lot of fantasy points to wide receivers, which is crazy. They play the Bengals again. So that week,
fire them up.
Yep, you can expect a top 10 week. I mean, the Dolphins, that could be this toughest matchup. And then they got the Ravens the following week. It's the only thing that the Dolphins could be the only one that kind of hurts you at championship week.
Yeah, the Ravens, I will say, they adjusted schematically a couple weeks ago, and their defenses looked a lot better. Beginning of the year, they were very much a must-start defense. They're not so much anymore. And that's why I like the charts that we publish. That's why I like them because of things like that, where you can see that transition. Now, if you're looking at the Ravens, they are actually the worst matchup on paper right now for wide receivers. I think a lot of that the last 3, let's see, Philly, the Chargers, and Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I mean, that Eagle game was just kind of like really cold and tough to play. And it was just rock. The Steelers, that's just a dogfight matchup. Yeah. I think that's a little inflated, but they did move Kyle Hamilton back into the deep part of their defense. And that's probably a big part of it.
Yeah.
But that's a week 18 matchup. I mean, it probably doesn't impact a lot of leagues because you're not really playing championships back then.
Sure.
If you do 2-week championships, you might have a week 18, but I'm not really worried about it. I think that he's matchup proof.
Well, just on volume alone, I mean, if Jameis is going to throw over 40 times a game and he's their number 1 wide receiver, even if Njoku is the actually first target for him, that's still way too much just to give up.
Yeah. So, easy buy. Easy buy.
Breaking news from none other than Chad. Trevor Lawrence officially has surgery done for the year.
What did he have surgery on?
Probably his shoulder.
Yeah.
Or his brain.
Yeah, like I said during the injury segment, this is a long time coming. He was pain everywhere.
I mean, he was like fighting to get into the game last week.
He was literally the Jameis quote. The dude literally just everything. They said at one point that he came in on Monday and it's just like literally everything hurt. And they just kept throwing him out there, even though they're losing. It just made no sense.
Yeah, it's kind of crappy. Sometimes you got to put the player over the team and that, like, just take care of him. But I mean, he does get paid a lot of money, so we'll see. All right, so that'll wrap it up for Fantasy Football Tinder. Let's transition into our only fantasy segment of the week. Before we get, oh, that's not you, Drew. What have I done? I forgot that I got to switch this out. So let's go back in time. Jono was a great guest, but we got to get this right for my boy Drew. So let's go back to week 11 and only fantasy start. Where are you? Dang. I got to find it. Screw it. We're going to just keep it moving. You can be Jono today. So only fantasy, every week we pick one player who we think is going to have a big week. As we're doing this, if you have any last minute questions, please get those in the chat now. We're going to get wrapped up after this segment. But we always like to start with who we predicted last week and kind of give a little rundown on how things went. We're looking at the history. Turkey Day, Rico Dowdle secured the bag, secured the turkey leg, drop it in the Salvation Army bucket. 22 carries, 112 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 catches for 11 yards. RB6 on the week. Drew, that one had to feel good.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to feel even better this week when I pick on the Giants again, but should I just go right into it?
No.
Yeah, do yours.
No, we'll do mine. Jacoby Myers. Well, working man's performance, as you can see with the wrench and the hammer. 6 receptions, 97 yards, 11 targets, but he finished as a wide receiver 25. Really wanted to see him get that touchdown, but Jacoby Myers has been coming on strong. He's somebody that I feel comfortable starting every week. Didn't work the way that we wanted to against Kansas City. I did want to see them squeak out that win, though. I was very disappointed that they weren't able to make it happen. So, Drew, if we're looking at only fantasy for this week, what do you got for me?
Kind of alluded to it already. Obviously, I'm going with Alvin Kamara. I didn't really want to pick on the same team 2 weeks in a row. I've done that in the past, but there's a difference, and there's a reason why I picked Alvin Kamara this week. As soon as you sent me the chart, I texted you. I said, something reeks on this chart. And I tweeted the same thing. Alvin Kamara always has these disgusting games late in the year. A couple years ago, he had 6 touchdowns in a championship week. He shows up in November and December. And I just feel like he has that annual November, December game where he puts up 3 touchdowns and he just carries you to championships. Like
it's he eats Thanksgiving food and gets like superpowers. He's like, yeah.
It happens every single year. And this is just like a slam dunk. Like, I just feel like the fact that Taysom Hill got hurt, he was literally the only other person on this offense that was taking any touches away from him. You're basically relying on Marquez Valdez-Scantling to take away touches from Alvin Kamara. It just reeks. 32.1 fantasy points per game over the last 3 by the Giants. Rico Dowdle hit. With an offense that had Cooper Rush at quarterback, so they didn't really have to have a threat from the quarterback. Throwing at the CeeDee Lamb didn't even work out too much. The matchup is too good, and I just feel like this reeks of a game where he has like 2 or 3 or 4 touchdowns, and it's just like I'd be shocked if he's not a top 5 RB this week, and he just has to be in all lineups.
Yeah, I like it. It's gonna be a good one for him for sure. Like all signs just pointing to it being a smash. So for me, it's funny because I've been writing an article every week about like players that I would drop. This guy was actually on my drop list a couple weeks ago, but I am really liking this matchup this week. So this week, dipping back into the wide receiver bucket here, I'm going with Xavier Worthy. So Xavier Worthy has the Chargers, who you would think on paper probably a tougher matchup than you would think. They have some good options in the cornerback room. However, in the last 3 weeks, the Chargers are giving up 8.4 points per game, more on average than anybody else after playing Atlanta, Baltimore, and Cincinnati. So I like the matchup. Xavier Worthy, he's gotten 5 or more targets in the last 3 games. And there's been a lot of opportunities for him to kind of take the top off the defense that just haven't connected. I think this is the week that he gets that touchdown. It gets connected. And I think that he has a really good chance of kind of reaching the end zone. So it's going to be my pick for this week. Cool. So we did have one more question in the chat that we can get to. So this was again from Tyler. So there's a couple here. This is actually just one, but listing a couple of different options. So this is another tight end question. So we got Otten, Jawan Johnson, Tyler Ferguson, Jake. No, you know what's funny? I have a friend named Tyler Ferguson.
Shout out to Tyler Ferguson.
Shout out to Tyler Ferguson. You know, he's actually the guy that's friends with Christian McCaffrey.
2 shout outs to Tyler Ferguson this week.
Yeah, right. Or we got Knox or Kincaid. So out of those 5, is there anybody that you're feeling particular about? To me, it's going to be Ferguson just because of that Bengals matchup, I think.
Is he playing this week, though?
I thought he was.
Has he played the last few weeks? I feel like I haven't seen him.
Let me see if he played last week. I don't even remember.
If he has, he's just been so quiet with Cooper Rush. But
yeah, he didn't do anything. No, he was still ruled out for the concussion.
Yeah, so like I don't know if he's gonna play. He obviously has the good matchup. K-Dot also has a good matchup though, so it's probably one of those 2 for me.
Yeah, I like that. So I would say if Ferguson's playing, the only thing that they'll probably give the indication because they have to with the concussion protocol, it's 48 hours in advance that they have to be cleared.
I don't know if I don't think there's a rule there. It's just that like if a team is traveling, typically you'll get information.
Yeah. The only thing that worries me is just because Ferguson has the Monday night, like you need to make that call of what you're doing ahead of time. So I think just monitor what he looks like in practice this week. If you don't see him in there by Friday, probably want to roll with Kate Otten.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would probably just roll with Otten because I just don't want to deal with the stress, but
I love the stress. It's fun. Got Zach in the chat.
What the hell is he doing here?
He's probably just listening to his Spotify Wrapped. Who, if by the way, if you ever see Drew's, it was terrible.
I listen to a lot of music that people don't have any idea what it is, to be honest, but it's okay.
It's all good.
Outside of Post Malone, which I was in the top 0.7%, which is really weird of people.
Yeah, he was my number 1 too. It's weird. It's like we're friends or something. It's super interesting.
It's because you look at me every Wednesday at 6 o'clock, and I look exactly like him. See the tattoos. People say that all the time.
I bet.
You didn't see it?
Just like people say that I look like Mac Miller.
Well, I got the Josh Allen one. That was pretty bad.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Around the 412, people Spotify and Wrapped. Couldn't be me. I don't listen to podcasts. I just talk to them.
Wait, I guess they could show up though, right?
They could. I think there's like a separate little section for podcasts specifically. They don't intertwine with the 2, but yeah, as they should. So if you aren't liking, subscribing, doing all of that stuff, where can you find us? Zach, this is a beautiful transition. Or maybe it's Tyler at the hospital. Who knows? But
is that happening?
That's happening.
Nice.
Yes. So let's see. So where can they find us? The good people can find us at XAT412FF Show, YouTube and Twitch at Around the 412. Like we've been saying and like we've been mentioning, we're getting close to the penultimate week of the Rockin' Around the 412 year 7. It's been a really great year for that. So shout out to the boys for all the work that they did in kind of putting money together for kids in the 724 and the 412 area codes. We got the name drop and everything. Sydney Jane Weeks is here in the building. If you've watched the flagship show, Tyler, one of the hosts, had a baby this morning, actually.
I wonder why they picked Sydney.
Probably for Crosby.
Oh, I had no idea.
It's kind of goated. So congrats to them. But like I was saying, yeah, a lot of good work in the Pittsburgh community. I know that the last time that I heard the numbers, over 60 kids sponsored just to help kind of make a better Christmas holiday season for them. So that's super dope. The link for the GoFundMe is in the description of the YouTube and Twitch shows. So if you're curious, if you think it's going to happen, we have the bet on the line from me for the Bengals defense this week on that. So we'll see what happens. But Drew, week 14, last week of the regular season, any closing thoughts?
Congrats to Tyler. Welcome to fatherhood, dude. My little boy crushed up a turkey burger around like 12:30 today and decided to put some of it in my mouth. Welcome. We're here. Hopefully your wife is healthy, and so is the baby.
Sweet. Yeah. So hopefully I can finish out the fantasy football season without this happening. I think we got like 6 weeks to go. So we'll see what happens. Everybody just getting nasty on the Around the 412 show. But it is what it is. So, Drew, let's wrap it up this week. Unlike the rest of the people that do this show, best of luck to everybody in week 14. We will be back next week at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central to get y'all ready for the playoffs. I'm Joe Frick. That's Drew Hannis. This is the Around the 412 Fantasy Football Show. Until next time, my friends.